Next game we're talking about is number 4 Arizona State against number 5 Texas. It's the Peach Bowl on New Year's Day, Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. Dalton, you have Sam Leavitt and the Sun Devil passing game against what might be the best pass defense in all of college football. So what should we be looking out for when they have the ball?
Boy, real quick, it just keeps popping up to me where a Big 12 team goes and wins the SEC. And a Pac-12 team goes in with, mind you, the worst team in the Pac-12 last year.
Yeah.
Maybe one of two goes and wins the Big 12. Just so much fun to think about it like that. Anyway, Arizona State's passing game. You know what you get out of them? Screens, screens, and more screens. And as great as Sam Leavitt's been throwing the ball down the field in the second half of the season, the screen game is just dynamic. And I'm not talking about, like Tennessee's screen game where it's just constant RPO with power inside and bubble outside. It's the same thing every time we just run. I'm talking about all sorts of just nonsense almost that Kenny Dillingham and Marcus Arroyo draw up there, their offensive coordinator. You talk about slip screens, you've got tunnel screens with action over here, you've got, offensive line influencing one way with Skattebo sneaking out the backside. There's just all sorts of screens. Nobody runs a higher rate of screens than Arizona State. 24% of their pass plays. Screens, most in the country. But they don't just do it a lot and just say, oh, we're trying to get 4 yards on it, whatever. Third in yards per attempt, first downs and touchdowns, second on the year, explosive pass percentage, fourth. They time these things up, and they have so much creativity when it comes to the screen game and creating after the catch that they create explosive plays out of them, right? We know what Skattebo can do, but I believe it's 11 different players. 11 different players have caught a screen this season for Arizona State on offense. I mean, it's just crazy. Skattebo obviously leads the way with 20 catches on screens, but this is what they do. There's so many coaches that talk about we want to use the screen game as the whole extension of the running game that literally every head coach, every offensive coordinator in America says. Arizona State actually does it. That's what it is. It can be a quick swing out to Skattebo in space, and they've got escort and lead blockers and receivers out there blocking. We're getting linemen releasing. I mean, there's just a million different ways to get to it, but the whole idea is to create yards after the catch for really good athletes in space, because this isn't the most physically dominant team inside, right? So if we kind of substitute this in for part of their outside run game, then it starts to make sense, because this Texas defense, it's very hard to throw downfield on.
Oh, yeah.
They are 10-plus yard targets down to and preventing deep shots. They're the best team in the country.
Yeah.
That's just a fact.
It's the best secondary in the country, in my opinion.
I agree. I think with Barron, Taft, Makuba, Muhammad, you're not going to throw downfield on them. It's just even, you would have stood a better chance if you had Jordan Tyson. Mm-hmm. But I think this is what Texas has got to be looking at going, we have to make tackles after the catch. Just like Ginty, I just talked about in the run game with the last game, Skattebo and Guillory and the tight ends and all of these guys at Arizona State. Anybody's a threat at any time on a screen. Even when you think it's a read option and Sam Leavitt's going to keep it and turn the corner, you come up on him, the corner comes up on him. No, he's going to start playing basketball, and we got somebody standing out there ready for it. Like, that's just where we're at with Arizona State. They're so good at deceiving linebackers and safeties, getting them going one direction and we'll throw it back one other way, or getting lead blockers out in front, that Texas is going to have to make open field tackles. I think that's the two biggest things for them in coverage. And look, I could find a Texas angle on this, but I really couldn't, because they're just great at everything in coverage. That's why they have the top coverage grade in the nation. But I think those are the two things Texas is looking at. This screen game, eye discipline, open field tackling. And a big guy I want to talk about is Anthony Hill at linebacker. 92.5 coverage grade on screens this year. He's really the guy. He's the guy who diagnoses these things. 13 tackles against screens this season, most by any linebacker in the country.
Wow.
He's just the guy who diagnoses, he fires off. He's really good at seeing offensive linemen delay and then kind of get by him and kind of slither by him and make these tackles. I think he's going to be a big factor when it comes to stopping these plays.
He might be the best linebacker in the country going into next year. Honestly, he's been unreal for his first 2 years of college football. Dawn, before I move on to the run game, so you were drawing up a play. I can't get the whiteboard over here, but you were drawing up a play for Eli and I, just showing us what you call the fuckery screen for Arizona State, because it just fucks with the defense so much. Can you kind of break down that play for everyone? Because it was a fascinating play when you were breaking it down for us.
So what you have is, you'll see linebackers aren't supposed to be they're not supposed to be staring in the backfield when they're making their reads on their run keys, right? Usually you're looking at guards. That's the most common thing. So what happens is that they have a play in their playbook, and they run it once or twice a week, where you'll have Cam Skattebo in the shotgun getting lateral, like he's running outside zone one way. Mm-hmm. All right. Up front, the offensive line's running power the other way, with the guard pulling off to the right. Yeah. Meanwhile, out to that same side, You got a tunnel screen on the outside, so you've got the safeties and corners on that side going, oh, we got a tunnel, we got to get up underneath. And while everything's happening on that side and all the influence is going there, we've got Skattebo just sneaking out here to the backside with maybe one lineman releasing, and the idea of it getting one-on-one with a safety. Yeah. So you're talking about the whole idea of these screens, just like in the run game, right? If I can get my ball carrier one-on-one with a safety, I feel like I have an advantage. They just extend that into the screen game and using the entire width of the field to get.
Look at that! Look at our producers out
we got cameras rolling. That top play right there, the bottom one, something else we'll talk about later. But that's what we're talking about. You've got Skattebo going one way, the offensive line going completely the other to influence linebackers. We got linebackers and safeties on the backside, totally confused, and then we have Cam. Look at all that white space on the left side for Skattebo to work with.
Yep.
That's not what you want as a defense. So it's things like this that I don't know how Kenny Dillingham and Marcus Arroyo think of these things, and they just mash like 3 different plays together and then just go, oh yeah, we're just throwing it out to him. Oh, this is all bullshit.
Yeah,
that's that. But that's what we're talking. And it could be scat, it could be tight end screens, it could be tunnel screens. Sam Levitt with kind of a triple option look like we used to see from Nick Marshall and Gus Malzahn at Auburn. They've taken every screen in the history of football and they've put it in this offense, and that's just one of many examples of it.
I appreciate producer Tyler and producer Eli for doing that. That was excellent producing by them right there. But I love that, dude, honestly, because that play is just, it's so fascinating. Because obviously, if you get Cam Skattebo one-on-one with any defender, I don't care who he is, you're in trouble, honestly. And that's what really breaks down my run game versus Texas' run defense is just tackle Cam Skattebo, which is easier said than done, obviously. I think it's the exact breakdown you just had with
Ashton. Couldn't pay me enough to do it.
No, you just broke it down with the Penn State game in Boise State saying, hey, tackle Ashton Ginty. It's the same thing here. It was Cam Skattebo. As you can see, he's been one of the best running backs in college football this year. He finished 5th in Heisman Trophy voting and 2nd to only Ashton Ginty among the nation's running backs. 92 broken tackles on runs, leads all Power 4 running backs. 1,085 yards after contact is 3rd in college football. And he's done it behind an offensive line that is 104th in run blocking grade this year with a 56.7 grade. That could be a major issue against the Texas defensive line because they only allow 1.2 yards before contact per attempt, 24th best in the country. You broke them down in the first-round matchup, Dalton, against Clemson. Alfred Collins is the star of that defensive line for Texas. 87.9 run defense grade, 5th among Power 4 D tackles. The one thing I'll say about this Texas defense, and they are the best in the country, I think, but they are 103rd in the country in missed tackle rate on runs. They've missed 17% of tackles on runs this year. Now, they have hit the running backs a lot in the backfield, so that makes up for it, but they've had some issues tackling running backs. And Cam Skattebo, as we just illustrated, is one of the hardest running backs in the country to tackle. So if Skattebo is going to be successful on the ground, he'll likely need to put on a Superman cape and just break as many tackles as possible against one of the best defenses in college football. And if he does that, then that opens the door for Sam Levitt in the passing game, kind of like it opens the door for Maddox Madsen in Boise State. But Cam Skattebo has got to be just a tackle-breaking menace like he was in the Big 12 title game and like he's been all year, honestly, because if he's not, I struggle to see how that Arizona State offensive line is going to get any push against Texas' defensive line.
I'm expecting 35 touches for him.
Yeah.
Run and pass. I mean, I think it's kind of the same thing we said we thought we were going to get against Iowa State, and it turns out he just didn't even need that many touches because they were just blowing the doors off him, right? I think, especially, again, still without Jordan Tyson, it looks like he won't be any part of this playoff run with his injury. Skattebo is the engine. We know he's the engine, and I think – the underrated thing, again, is that obviously a fantastic runner, but also an excellent receiver, right? I think over 500 receiving yards this season, breaks tackles in the open field as well. And it feels like no matter how many touches he gets, he just keeps rolling.
Yeah.
It looks like he doesn't break a sweat out there. Like he just never gets tired. So you mentioned it. It's a similar thing. I think obviously he's the star. He's the engine of the offense. No matter how they get to him, it's going to be Texas' number one problem is taking him down because no one's been able to do it yet.
Absolutely. So, Dalton, let's go to the other run game. The Texas Longhorn run game is the Arizona State run defense. And obviously Texas, a massive day on the ground in the first-round playoff game against Clemson. And like I said, the outside zone is working beautifully for them. So will it work the same against the Sun Devils this week?
Yeah, this is just a tough matchup for Arizona State. I think what you have, and their run defense got a whole lot better. We talked about it a couple times during the regular season. Is it the best run defense in the country? No, they're still a little bit small. This defense is kind of based in being athletic and fast and really aggressive. It's a really aggressive, high-effort defense. It's something I've talked about all year. They put as much – it sounds funny, but they put as much effort into playing defense, I think, as any team I've watched all season. They want to get after it. But the facts are they're a little bit smaller. Defensive line is not great. Outside the top 100 in run defense grade, their defensive line is, okay? Texas – 7th best run blocking grade in the Power 4 on their offensive line. I mean, look at the freaks they have. Calvin Banks, right? Cameron Williams, if he's playing on the other side, have we heard anything?
I think he will be playing.
I mean, he just mauled Clemson last week. Cameron Williams was a monster. Jake Majors at center as well. I mean, all 5 guys. There's a reason they were finalists for the Joe Moore Award. They're that good, right? And we've talked about pass protection a lot this year, but they're really good in run blocking as well. I'm stealing this one from you. This outside zone game that they showed last week, let's just run it again. 23 carries, 249 yards, 6 explosives, and an 85.2 rushing grade. I mean, this single-handedly won the Clemson game. Right when Clemson felt like they had a pulse, what does Texas come back with the next play? Just run stretch behind Calvin Banks. Right. It felt like I was watching the 49ers. Just get behind Trent Williams again, and it'll probably work because that's how this goes, right? And I think that's where you're sitting at if you're Arizona State. If you're watching last week's tape, you go, oh, that's a problem. That's a real problem when they're ripping off 11 yards a carry, 12 yards a carry, whatever we had going. So, I think, look, there's a couple of times this year where they gave up some yards on outside zone. They haven't seen it a whole lot in the Big 12, but a couple of games where I think offer you some hope. They've played 2 of the best run-blocking teams in the country in Kansas and Utah, right? Those are the 2 teams they face that are actually ahead of Texas in run-blocking grade. Utah especially runs a lot of outside zone. They allowed at least 5 yards of carry in both games. So, and I think what you're trying to figure out here is if they can't, because Clemson, they just got mauled up front. You just can't get mauled up front like that. And I think especially your second-level defenders, too. I thought Texas did a fantastic job getting up on Clemson's linebackers. That's really what happens here. Good runs are well blocked on the first level. Great runs are well blocked on the second level. Okay, and again, this defensive line, I think, is at a disadvantage. So you're talking about guys like Keyshawn Elliott and these linebackers really getting after it at the second level, needing to get, cross-face on these guys, trying to get to them at that second level and make tackles before Wisner or Jaden Blue can take off for 70 yards on them.
Yeah, absolutely. And what that run game did in that first-round playoff game was take the ball out of Quinn Ewers, right, and take it away and say, hey, just do your job out there. Don't go above and beyond. And it could do the same thing in this one. And also, what really could help out Quinn Ewers in this game is his pass protection, which has been elite all year. And Arizona State has not been very good at all at rushing the passer this year. So my match to watch is Quinn Ewers going to have all day to throw back there. Because you mentioned it. I think Texas probably is the best offensive line in college football between the run blocking and especially the pass blocking this year. 89.6 pass blocking grade is more than 2 points higher than anyone else in college football. 16.2% pressure rate allowed, 10th in the country. And they've played 7 games against a defense with a top 50 pass rushing grade in the country. In those 7 games, 82.6 pass blocking grade, and they've only allowed a pressure 20.3% of the time. They played some elite pass rushes this year, and they still played lights out in pass protection. Not only does Arizona State not have a top 50 pass rushing grade, it's one of the lowest in all of college football. They're 56.8 pass rushing grade, 3rd worst in the country, and they have a 24.8% pressure rate. That's 11th worst in the country. And they don't really send a blitz either. They're kind of okay with not having really any pass rush. They send a blitz only 25% of the time this year. It's 121st in the nation. They do send a stunt a lot. They send a stunts at about a top 25 clip in the country. But against stunts, Texas has the 3rd best pass blocking grade in the nation with an 81.6 mark. So I think Quinn Ewers in a clean pocket is pretty good, right? 78.4 passing grade in a clean pocket. It's only 86 in the country, but it's still solid, right? He's decidedly worse under pressure, though. He has a 48.1 passing grade under pressure. If Arizona State is going to pull off the upset, you got to find some way to put Quinn Ewers under duress. Because if he's got all day to throw back there and the run game's working as well, I just don't know how Arizona State's defense can make enough stops to pull off this game. So find some way. Maybe it means blitzing more than you've done before because they don't blitz at all, like I just said. you got to find some way to put Quinn Ewers under pressure, because if not, I just really struggle to see how the Sun Devils are going to do this.
I think that's really been the key for Arizona State's defense this year. The run defense has gotten a lot better, and that was important in a run-heavy Big 12, but the coverage unit's really been the best part of it, right? Xavion Alford at safety and a lot of other guys on the outside who have played well. They have emphasized, listen, we know what we are. We're small, we're athletic, we're going to cover, we're going to tackle in the open field, and in the run game, we're going to just try to give as much effort as possible and not give up too many explosive runs, right? But this is the part with Texas where they have such a high floor offensively, as long as Quinn Ewers isn't turning the ball over. The stability that having a great offensive line gives you is almost immeasurable, right? We even think about teams like the Eagles and the Lions in the NFL, right, who have top-notch offensive lines. You sit here and you go, do they ever have a bad offensive day? No, and it's not because of maybe the quarterback or this. It's because their offensive line in pass pro and in run blocking just mauls people, right? And Texas has the same dynamic going. So you've mentioned it before. Quinn Ewers, that's the most comfortable situation in college football right there. You got weapons with speed. You got two good backs. You got the best offensive line in college football. Go out there and just run the offense. And anytime you're talking about that pressure rate getting right around 20%, that's elite stuff. Because you're talking about, bad is somewhere 40 to 50. Average is in the high 20s or 30s. You get down to 20, you really got a lot of clean pockets to work with. So you're right. The opportunity is going to be there for Quinn Ewers. As long as he doesn't turn the ball over, there's a lot of advantages Texas has on offense.
And I will say Arizona State's been a pretty good job at forcing turnovers this year, right? I think they have a top 20, more than 20 most interceptions in the country.
That's the other thing is it's high effort, and they do force a lot of turnover. Many of their games this season have been turned in their favor because they have forced multiple turnovers that very often directly result in scores.
I think they have like 16 or 17 interceptions this year, which is like top 20 in the country.
Down the stretch, especially the secondary, just ball hawks. That's absolutely something Quinn needs to watch out for.
Absolutely. So that's another thing as well. But if he's got all day to throw back there and just calm himself down, like it's hard to first turnovers when you're not getting any pressure, right? So I think that's another thing to watch out for in this Texas-Arizona State game. But ultimately, Dolan, who will win the Peach Bowl and go on to face either Oregon or Ohio State in the semifinal?
I think there's two things that jump out for me. It is that advantage on the offensive line, like they had last week against Clemson, where it just at the end of the day, it was, we're going to get behind these five guys. And even with Williams and Majors getting hurt during the game, two more backups came in, and they were still mauling people. And again, the biggest play of the game that really put it away, get behind Kelvin Banks and run. I wish I had that job, because Kelvin Banks is really darn good. We're going to see him go top 10. But the other thing that stands out to me, I think this is the game. We both picked Arizona State to beat Iowa State. We're like, they could overcome this. I think not having Jordan Tyson in this game, the way he was playing and the way that he was really the downfield threat who could separate. He was really coming on. He was one of the best receivers this year in the second half. I think this is a game where not having him is a problem. I think Texas has two decided advantages. One, the offensive line, like you mentioned, and two, best secondary in the country. And they prevent downfield throws better than everyone. For as much as I love all of the screens and all of the buffoonery that come with them, eventually you have to make some throws downfield, and without Tyson, I think that's going to be a little bit harder for Sam Leavitt. I've got Texas 38-24. I do think this is a fun game early, but Texas a little more physical, has a little more depth to work with here.
Yeah, I got Texas winning this game as well. I have it 35-20. I think they're going to dominate in the trenches. And you said it really well, I think, in our review show. You said there might not be a better team in the country in the trenches than Texas. And the problem with Arizona State is that their trenches are probably the worst part of their team, right? They have some really good secondary players. Cam Skattebo is obviously a superstar. Sam Leavitt's played really well this year. Jordan Tyson, when healthy, is one of the best receivers in the country. But the problem is the offensive line and the defensive line have still struggled this year, right? And against Texas, who has the best offensive line in the country and one of the best defensive lines in the country, that could be a big problem in this game. So it's certainly possible. Listen, there is an avenue for Arizona State to pull off this upset. It's Cam Skattebo gets red hot, which is certainly possible. He's done it a lot this year. Or Quinn Ewers gets ice cold, which is certainly possible. He's done it a lot this year as well.
It may take both.
It may take both, exactly. And it could happen that both those things happen. But this is a game the Longhorns should win. Unless one or both those things really happen and really are on fire, or in Quinn Ewers' case, are ice cold, Texas should win this game. So I think Texas will win the Peach Bowl and then go on to face either Oregon or Ohio State in the college football playoff semifinal. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.